Welcome, everybody, and I'm so glad you're here to join us for our weekly St. Louis Art Q&A with the Family Support Team. We've got our friends from UMSL here today to talk to us about the Office on Inclusive Post-Secondary Education, which is the new moniker for all the amazing services that are offered for students with disabilities at UMSL. So without further ado, my friend Jonathan's here. Jonathan, please let everybody know a little bit about you and about the UMSL post-secondary programs.
Thank you, Sharon, for inviting me to this Q&A today. Like Sharon said, my name is Jonathan Ligis. I am the director of the Office of Inclusive Post-Secondary Education, as some people call OIP, which I don't like, so we're not going to do that anymore. But I have actually been with UMSL for over 20 years and started in actually multiple roles. I started as a grad student within the Office of Student Life, and then I moved on to residential life, where I eventually became the director. And I was the director of residential life when a group of instructors came to me and said, we want to start this program for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, uh, and they attend college and they live on campus. And I said no, and then shut the door on their face. And I stopped the program from going forward. My entire role in is to think about the worst case scenario all the time as the director of housing, and I didn't even give anybody the chance, and I stopped it from happening. Then Sharon and Mark got involved, and they got some grant money from our local disability boards, and they took us on a field trip. And I said, sure, I will go on the field trip. And we went to visit a similar program in Missouri, and it was an eye-opening experience for me and everybody there. Uh, Everything, and I spent a long time talking with their housing department. I spent a long time talking to their students and talking to the program, and I walked out of there completely changed. I walked out of there thinking not only could we do this program, but we can do the best program in the United States. And that was a little over 10 years ago. And here we are. I left housing. I am 6 months away from my PhD in transition education. And I am, um, and we are one of the largest programs in the United States for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. So it has been a life-changing experience for me, a career-changing experience for me, and the impact that we have and the impact the students have given us and the families that we support have helped us grow our program and programs like ours across the United States.
Yeah,
That's a
I
long
asked
way
you
of
to kind
introducing
of
myself.
talk about your backstory because I really think it's impacted so much about the trajectory of where UMSL's gone because we pulled in people that weren't from the disability services arena. We created a program that really you all looked at what is happening with all the other students on campus and where do we need to make a tweak or an accommodation instead of creating something completely separate and very different. And I think because of that, the program is where it is today. And it just delights me to hear how many people are involved, how many students are receiving services, how much expansion there's been. So thank you very much for coming today. I think what we would like to do is start with a short presentation so that you can tell us a little bit about what's happening over at UMSL, what the program options are, and a little bit about what you're doing.
I wanted to, to talk about our program. I wanted to briefly chat through what helped start our program, and this really gives families a great idea of some of the requirements and logistics around programs like ours across the United States. In 2008, the Higher Education Opportunity Act was passed. And the point of the Higher Education Opportunity Act was to allow students who traditionally would not be eligible for college, specifically those with intellectual disabilities, to attend. And that also, the Higher Education Opportunity Act provided federal aid for those students to attend, and then also created a system of grants that created model demonstration programs. So what does it look like to really have and support students with intellectual and developmental disabilities in higher ed institutions across the United States? And how do we support them? What are the best practices in supporting them? And how do we make it affordable and accessible to those students? Um, and it also helped clarify some language within Voc Rehab in terms of how different funds can be used for programs like ours. A lot of that is state-based, and I can kind of get into that later in the question and answer, but there's a lot of access to things in post-secondary education that can be used for colleges for when a student has an intellectual or developmental disability. So in 2008, like I said, these TIPSID programs started. Every 5 years, we get new TIPSID programs. It started out with about 25 of them across the United States. Really, the entire focus of the Higher Education Opportunity Act is helping students gain access to um, really higher education, which allows for gainful employment. You know, one of the things that the parents, and this is really a parent-driven move, like most things in the disability community are, parents are concerned about the unemployment and underemployment rate of individuals with intellectual disability and the access to what college actually gives them. So what they did is really focus these TIPSID programs on driving forward gainful employment, driving forward independent living, and what that means for students is access to living on campus and really providing the social network connections that higher education really can provide. So this is a map that is a little bit older because I have not found a new one yet, because Missouri actually has 4 programs that that are currently in place. But there are programs, and also Wyoming has a program that is just starting up. So there will be a program in every state next year in the fall. Like I said, they started out with 25 programs. Now there's 318 programs. And when you think about 318, you're like, wow, that's a lot of growth in like 15 years. That's a lot of growth. The problem with that is that's only 6.5% of all the colleges and universities in the United States. So what this causes is an access issue.
Hey, Jonathan,
Because, yes,
before you move on, can you tell us what IPSE stands for?
sure. IPSE is a short term for a program, an inclusive post-secondary education program. So, and I'll kind of dig deeper into it like right now in this slide, but IPSE is for programs that support students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. As you drill down into different types of IPSE programs, sometimes they are more supporting students with developmental disabilities, and sometimes they support more with intellectual disability, and that is the comprehensive transition program, which I'll kind of chat through. But yeah, kind of going back to that number of programs, the 6.5%, getting into one of our programs is, it's harder to get in one of these programs than it is a competitive Ivy League school. And it doesn't have to be that way. So really thinking through access to programs and generating new programs. And that's something that I'm very passionate about, and something that part of our TIPSA grant, we actually have a TIPSA grant at UMSL as a model demonstration program to start new programs. So we actually helped start the program at Mizzou that just finished their first year. So we're really proud of them, up and going, so that we have more access to college for students in Missouri. So like I said, and good question, Sharon, IPSE programs is for students with intellectual and developmental disabilities. One of the issues is the federal definition and the law says that students who only have intellectual disability can get federal financial aid. And that's what a comprehensive transition program is. And it's also, CTPs are a Department of Ed. So the US Department of Ed, if your program that you develop, so like we developed Succeed 10 years ago, we submitted an application to be a CTP program so that we could give out financial aid to students who qualify under the federal definition of intellectual disability. However, we support students in a neurodiverse way, which I'll get through a little more detail about our program. But you can view all of the programs in our in the United States on thinkcollege.net. And we're slowly, as that's growing, creating alliances like regional networks and state alliances of programs to really develop accreditation. So accreditation is coming to these programs. We just accredited our second program in the United States, which is awesome. And also really working at staff development and best practices across this group. Okay, as we
Hey,
kind of go through,
Jonathan. I
yes.
just want to say that you mentioned thinkcollege.net. We've done a Q&A with them, so we'll pop that up so people can see it, as well as the Show Me College website. And I don't know if you're going to talk about that at all, but that's been a great resource for families and potential students.
Yeah, like Sharon said, we have worked with Think College and Show Me College on that to really provide as many resources for families as possible to make the best choices, because college should be a choice and a best fit, and that's really what we're looking for. So let me talk about our office. As Sharon talked about, we split and grew our office over the last 10 years. We started out with about 13 students, graduated 9 of them, and now we support over 80 students in 3 separate programs. And those programs are the Succeed program, which everybody is familiar with, which I'll talk in more detail. Succeed Plus is an option for students in the Succeed program once they graduate to continue their journey in education and employment. And then the Link programs. And Link is for students who want to pursue an undergraduate degree. So you're looking at those 4 to 5 year degrees, or an undergraduate certificate, which universities give out. So we really wanted to meet the needs of our neurodiverse community in the area. And this is the best way we could feel to really support them, because in college, obviously, IDEA goes away. And all you have left is the ADA. And that's not, I'm not saying that's bad, but there's only a menu of things that can support students. And those things are like extended test time. Those things are note takers in class. However, students with intellectual and developmental disabilities, our neurodiverse community, might need additional support. And sometimes that could mean more intense executive functioning supports, additional tutoring, more one-on-one coaching, and that's what we provide in our office. So the Succeed program is for students with intellectual disability. That is our CTP program. That is our 2 years. After 2 years in our program, you graduate with a chancellor's certificate, and that certificate really helps generate opportunities for students in independent living. So our 4 pillars are live, learn, work, and play, independent living, educational excellence, vocational support, and then community involvement, which is our play pillar. So we have outcomes in each one of those pillars, and students have the opportunity to commute, live on campus, and really become fully immersed in the UMSL community. In fact, electronically, once a student is admitted, you can't tell the difference between a Succeed student and any other student at the university. And like I said, Succeed Plus is that extra experience. If a student chooses to do that, many programs developing now can be 3 to 4 years. You know, college traditionally is 4 years to 5 years, and we were expecting our students in the Succeed program to grow in 2 years and just launch out into the world. And now we have better data that says an extra year or two could benefit a student vocationally and independently. And that's why we developed the Succeed Plus program, where students can really work towards external industry certifications. So that ranges from hospitality certificates, childcare certificates, or other things like that. And then our LINK program is additional executive functioning and support for students who who have been admitted to the university. Okay, so I'm going to dive deep into the Succeed program. And one of the things that I'm going to do in that is really show you all of our supports and what those look like. Those supports apply to all of the programs that we have. So everything is generally the same, and I'll highlight the differences, but those things are generally the same. So this Succeed program is 48 credit hours. So we believe if a student is taking college classes, they should be getting college credit. So you got to take 48 credit hours in a combination of curriculum that we teach and then classes that they take inclusively at the university in their vocational goal to meet those 48 credit hours. Like I said, it's residential or commuter. It is a CTP. And then our entire growth goal here is through person-centered planning and coaching. And here we go. So to get into the Succeed program, you have to have an intellectual disability diagnosis or scores on some test or exam that show that you qualify under the federal definition of intellectual disability. So traditionally that is IQ tests. We look at a lot of IEPs and evaluations that way. We attend a lot of IEP meetings with families. We've actually started attending IEP meetings in middle school, which is awesome, so that really we can help students prepare for that transition. Because while they say transition starts at 14, if I could put a UMSL onesie on everybody starting out in the hospital when they're born, I would do that because college should be an option for everyone. Our biggest requirement in all of our programs is a strong desire to continue a formal education. That's short for saying you need to want to be here and go to school. Whereas in a college program, you're going to want to continue that. You have to have a high school diploma or equivalent. That should be no problem in the United States. Self-care and support strategies, that's a fancy way of saying that you can take your medication without us giving it to you. And then there's certain requirements in terms of what the student has to attend. So they have to attend a summer camp or a day in the life, which is a college visit day where they spend the day with one of our students in an open house. The application process can be extensive, but it's online now and super accessible. It only took us 10 years to do that, but it's okay. But it requires it requires like kind of 4 letters of recommendation. It also requires you to kind of go through a day in the life and what that looks like and what supports you think you'll need in college. If I would admit everybody, if I could, uh, one of the biggest kind of admissions decisions we have to make is, are we able to support what you need? We always have a priority deadline that is always right after Thanksgiving. Uh, and those students that get applications in at the priority deadline are always guaranteed an interview, because that's the next step in the application process, is having an interview. And we interview the family separate from the student, to talk through why you want to be here, what supports are, and you guys are interviewing us too. Like, what do you need from us, and how we can work better as a team to support our students and our growth goals that way. Okay, person-centered planning is a semester-based process. We're going through that right now. We use Charting the Life course for those who are familiar with that, to really kind of drive the semester goals in live, learn, work, and play that our students are working on. And this is where the student who wants to invite anybody they want, we used to invite animals, we don't do that anymore. It's just a disaster. So but what we really want to do in these is set the trajectory, which is why we use the trajectory in the life course tools, to really, what does a successful, good semester look like? What are we worried about? And how can we make things good? And then we track those throughout the semester in coaching. So our students have a one-on-one coach, uh, and it's holistic coaching that they meet with weekly, or maybe more than once a week, in each one of our pillars. So I'm going to dive deep in these, and we'll go into question and answer in our pillars. Sharon, if we're getting short on time, please let me know. Um, so our live pillar, students live on campus inclusively if they want to with any other student. We assign rooms, like we assign rooms with any other student in a cohort. So our students, everybody lives in a 4-bedroom suite, so everybody has their own room, and there's 3 other students in their own rooms attached to a bathroom. So you basically share a bathroom with 3 other students. And the assignments work where we assign one other student in our program, and then the other 2 suite mates are traditional degree-seeking students. Probably usually they're in a cohort of education majors, social work majors, nursing majors that way. But when you think about independent living, we want to meet your goals of what independent living is, of where you are at. So it could be working on financing. So that's where meal plans come in. Budgeting your meal plan and not blowing it in the first 2 weeks on Starbucks is a great experience for everyone. Everybody has suite mate agreements. When are we cleaning? How are we cleaning? How are we managing independence on campus and navigating the campus through our shuttle system, walking, getting around, and really, what is our hygiene routine and how does that work too? And then we do roommate checks or room checks. Actually, we don't. Housing does, everybody, and we get a report on that. So, we use the same tools that housing has to really help our students that way. Learn, this one's easy. You go to class with everybody else, and you choose classes, any class that you qualify for under the if you didn't if you don't have to have a prerequisite for, so you're good there. You can take a class. We can modify courses for students. So let's say your goal is animal care. You want to take that biology course. We can modify a biology course and really set it as a 1 credit hour course. Because we're a comprehensive transition program, it's set for 3 credits on your transcript. But we modify the work so it meets your educational goal. So it might look like, instead of a large paper you got to do, it could be like an oral, discuss what you learned. You could take exams in different places. We work with you and the instructor on what all that looks like. So it's really exciting. in order to do it that way. So then work, everybody's required to have a vocational experience. So most, I want to say 90% of our students have paid employment while in the program. And that's either on campus through work study, or it's off campus with one of our partners. And our goal is to give you experiences in what you want to work in, to launch you out into a gainful experience outside of the program. And we work with agencies such as St. Louis Arc and VR as you exit the program to make that supportive employment easy that way. So we have job coaches. Each one of our students take classes in vocational experience, and then play is join in clubs, being involved. And our students traditionally do not have problems doing that because they like free food and t-shirts. So they go to
Hey,
everything.
there's
So
a question about employment. Can I go ahead and jump in with that now?
yeah, let's do it. Yeah.
Just really about a Voc Rehab. You said you could talk a little bit about Voc Rehab. The question was actually whether or not people could access Voc Rehab for both college and for a job later on. And I know the answer to that is yes.
Yes.
But maybe you can talk with a little bit more nuance about how Voc Rehab might apply with what
Yeah,
you're.
that's a really great question. Traditionally, and that's, Voc Rehab that has those two buckets, right? Educational funding and vocational funding. And traditionally, we were always able to help students transition uh, in the vocational area post succeed. So funding wasn't available for our program while the student was in the program. This year, we have transitioned to all of our courses being credit hour bearing. That wasn't always the case. So what Voc Rehab was looking for is, can we attach the student's vocational goal to a course and then pay for it that way? I'm happy to say we're well on our way to doing that as we progress through our our course approvals, which should be done by fall. So one of the exciting things is our students would be able to, so let's say that that uh, biology course is something that's within your vocational goal. Accessing funding for that biology course would be available at that point. The exciting part, the thing that you have to kind of know, there's a lot of requirements, if you don't already know, on Voc Rehab funding for education. A lot of it is need-based. You also have to show success in education for a semester before they even start funding. So there's a lot of requirements on that, but we're working really hard with them because not every state funds. It's really state-based. They're IPSI programs in Voc Rehab, and that's one thing that we are working on with them. So it's coming, uh, uh, and we've made a lot of changes and partnerships to do that.
And then when folks leave UMSL, they are working with the transition person to successfully transition out of UMSL towards a community organization if need be, but with the support needed from Voc Rehab. We have several questions about tuition and funding.
Yeah,
Really,
sure.
the questions are kind of about some typical things like in and out of state tuition and student loan forgiveness. And I know we had a pre-submitted question about whether to use A+ funds. It's not getting scholarships and support financially isn't quite the same for this program, is it?
Right. So I'll start. So I'll try to wrap all of those questions into one answer. So let me see if I can do it. So our program, when we became all credit, right? So our program's cost is just credit hour based now, like every other student. So what some limiting factors are is when you're in the Succeed program, you are in a non-credit program. Okay, that's what it's considered, or a non-degree program. Okay, so your credit program is a non-degree program. So what that means is, A+ funds do not apply to non-degree programs. If you're in the Link program, A+ is totally okay, because that is a degree program. But in the Succeed program, it does not. The Succeed program, like I said, is a comprehensive transition program, which means we can give out federal financial aid in the forms of Pell Grants, supplemental opportunity grants, and the most important one is work study. That is the one with the most money, because you can get almost $10,000 in work study at times, depending on need-based. So if you apply for the Succeed program, we are asking that everybody fills out the FAFSA every time. So we also have endowed scholarships. We have private scholarships. The Succeed program families can access student loans. However, those would not be federally subsidized student loans. So you're looking at higher interest rates. And I always say if a family's looking at a student loan for the Succeed program, I will try everything in my power to not make that happen, so that we can do what we have in terms of financial aid. We do have a lot of scholarships available. There's also a lot of scholarships, if you look at Think College, and then community-based scholarships, depending on, honestly, a lot of groups like Down Syndrome Congress gives scholarships, Ruby's Rainbows gives scholarships. So really depending on what community based access you can get, there's a lot of scholarships there as well. In terms of loan forgiveness, so this is a gray area. So because the Succeed program is non-degree, loan forgiveness does not apply. So there's a lot of things that don't apply to non-degree programs. But loan forgiveness does apply to the Link program. So if you think about it, the Succeed program is eligible for financial aid because it is the US Federal Department of Education gives us that ability, but no other department in the government recognizes that it is eligible for financial aid. So the IRS doesn't care, okay? Like there's a lot of things that don't care about the Succeed program or about CTP programs. And that's one of the drawbacks, but there's legislation out there fixing that. They need to reauthorize the Higher Education Opportunity Act to make that happen, which who knows if that's ever going to happen in a
It
while.
will. I know it will.
Yes. Good
I'm
question.
gonna let you decide what you think would be the best use. If there's things that you think are important to follow up with. Lisa's got a question. Let me see. What steps have been integrated into the program to ensure and promote student safety? That's a good one. Generally speaking, our students with intellectual disabilities are more vulnerable, and having them live away from home is scary.
Yeah,
Excellent
absolutely.
question, Lisa. Thank you.
Yeah, that is great. One of the biggest parts of our program is transition forced, and this actually leads into the rest of my presentation. So we'll just talk about it. That's great. Is transition for the student and the family. So that's why we have summer programs to navigate campus, summer camp. We have a bridge program for students that are incoming to get used to classes. And we also have a lot of family support meetings over the summer to help guide families from caretaker to advisor, to help families understand what we are doing here to support our students and keep them safe. So our campus is generally pretty compact, and we navigate that. We do a lot of that transition programming in terms of moving together, for lack of a better term, as a herd. And that's why they're in cohorts. In fact, that's the whole philosophy of new student programs, is putting students in cohorts so that they get to know each other socially and then move together in classes. So almost every freshman on campus is taking the same course, including our students. So they all know each other and they're all moving along that way. Our residence hall has 5 point safety system, which involves swiping cards, cameras, and stuff like that. But also, knowing that, because I used to run it, students, it's like a small liberal arts college. We're a large university, but the on-campus population is like a small liberal arts college, and everybody gets to know everybody by like the second week. So it really kind of takes care of themselves that way. And then part of that navigation safety, really, like making sure that they're safe, moving to and through that's where the RAs come in, and the training of the RAs, and housing really kind of supports students in, um, if you're going to move, like leave your room, or like go down to visit somebody, who are you telling you're doing that? So we practice a lot of that way. So a lot of transition programming, and that continues on for like 3 years. And a lot of the programming, and we do that for not only for our students, but for all students too. That's a
Yeah.
really good, yeah.
Well, and I think those are issues that really do happen for all families. And it's part of it is a change in your mindset. So something that we partner with Salon is doing trainings with families to help them move from caregiver to advisor. And I'm just going to plug coming up. I've got one of the Succeed adjunct staff and a PhD candidate and a person with a disability who's going to come on board with a family and a emerging adult that we support to talk about the dignity of risk and embracing calculated risk for the rewards that it brings. So mark your calendars for that coming
Yeah,
up
that's
in
gonna be
the
really
next
awesome.
month or two. It's in
We
July.
also we also do a meet and greet with families and our students with the police department. So we do that. That's something that's really important to us. Uh, I am really close with the police department here. Everybody is, for good reasons, not bad reasons. And everybody really is trained in working with this population. We do training with them as well. Great question.
Yeah, we've got some excellent folks on here. Um, what else was in your slide presentation that we didn't get to see?
Really, I think, talking about where programs are going is focusing a lot on moving students from the first year to the last year of their program in that gainful employment area. We spent a lot of time the last 2 years, and a lot of our programs have across the United States overhauling what our vocational supports look like, and what supportive employment is, and how to access and when we started these programs, it was like we don't need outside agencies help. We're college, and now we understand that this is like community effort with employers. So we're spending a lot of time, and agencies. So we're spending a lot of time like looking at what areas in St. Louis we can really tap into expertise in gainful employment and supportive employment, where those corporations are, where those agencies are, and partner with them. So really developing more partnerships that way and leveraging that is where programs are going. And then finally, our family support piece is probably something that is we're most proud of, and something that Sharon and her team has helped us out with a lot, and really how we help families grow. Because the last thing we want is to waste anybody's money and everybody going home and doing the same thing. I always say that, you're handing your student off to us. They're going to look a lot different when we hand them back, but we're not just handing them back to you. We're handing them back to agencies and employers, and other groups that way.
Excellent. All right, I think I know what I want to ask is our closing statement then. You guys just had graduation. Tell me what you experience when you see the Succeed students participating in graduation.
So it is my favorite day of the year. Not because the students are all leaving, but really it's because no, it's because it actually is a culmination of everybody's work. It is a celebration for everyone, the families, the students, the staff. Our jobs are not easy. College is difficult. it's worth it, and you see that at the end, and it is very emotional. And the best part about commencement, and we don't do this on purpose, it's just these ridiculous academic rules, is that our students are the last to cross the stage. And they're recognized, they participate in the College of Education commencement. And when our last student crosses the stage, it really sums up what inclusion's all about. It's not, inclusion is not easy for anybody, but it's the most wonderful experience when it's done correctly. And I'm not saying we do it perfectly, but it is something that to watch them shake the chancellor's hand, get their diploma, and walk across that stage at all the hard work, and then exiting the building and seeing the joy on their families' faces, taking pictures they always say it is about the journey, and that it is true, but the destination is pretty sweet too. It's really great. And our students and their families always stay later than everybody else because it's just what a community we have going there. So yeah, it's my favorite day. And our whole staff is there. It's great.
Well, congratulations. I can't believe from starting, I think we had 8 students graduate the year we started, and I don't know how many people graduated this year.
22.
22. And you said you've got a total of about 80 that you'll be supporting in this next year. It's incredible. The growth is incredible. I really thank you for coming on today.
Thank you.